Winston Churchill famously quipped that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms tried from time to time. We often treat this quote as a trump card, settling the debate by pointing out that our system wins a beauty contest against dictatorships. Comparing our political order to openly grotesque systems like absolute monarchy or fascism is an easy win, but it is an evasion. A pig in a waistcoat remains a pig, however poorly dressed the other animals might be. Stacking ourselves up against historical atrocities avoids looking closely at the specific problem our system claims to have solved. Outperforming a dictatorship in individual liberty or stability leaves the core friction unresolved: how to bind a population to rules they didn't choose. The mechanism of control has simply become more palatable. We are taught a specific civic catechism early on. Voting is your voice. The physical ritual of slipping a paper ballot into a box or tapping a screen is presented as an act of sovereign authorization. By participating in this procedure, you have supposedly consented to the outcome. In the United States, your individual voice represents about 1 in 200 million eligible voters. You have better odds of winning the lottery than decisively influencing the architecture of your own governance. To make matters worse, the Enlightenment ideal of the perfectly rational citizen is a fiction. Human beings arrive at the voting booth burdened with cognitive biases, predictable irrationalities, and susceptibilities to narrative manipulation. We do not evaluate policy as clean units of deliberative logic. Aggregating millions of statistically insignificant, manipulated choices generates a procedural laundering ritual. The system produces a result, and citizens are then expected to view that result as their own collective will. Think about the social contract we hear so much about. You didn't sign it. You didn't choose the boundaries of the polity, the constitutional grammar, or the inherited national debt. You were born into a pre-existing legal architecture. We are naturally pro-social animals who crave belonging and cooperation. But that biological drive evolved for small, intimate groups built on reputation, shared risk, and direct interaction. That delicate machinery breaks down when stretched across a massive continent of strangers. To bridge that enormous gap in scale, a state must manufacture an artificial sense of solidarity. It requires symbolic reinforcement, like civic education, sacred founding documents, national anthems, and flags, to convince millions of people with incompatible interests that they belong to a single entity called the people. In a diverse population, people don't just disagree on the methods, they disagree on the ultimate goals of society. What we call pluralistic compromise is often just administrative mush, the exact point where one side's moral reality is forcibly overruled by the other. Defenders of the system argue that by using public roads, courts, banks, and currency, you demonstrate ongoing consent to the political order. They claim your daily life is proof of your authorization. This flowchart traces a state of inescapable dependence on an enclosed legal geography. To survive, a citizen is legally required to earn state-backed currency simply to pay state-mandated taxes to exist within those borders. Using the necessary plumbing inside a cage is a matter of surviving the conditions of enclosure, not an expression of consent to captivity. The common rebuttal is, if you don't like it, you can leave. But emigration is costly, requires a clean bill of health, and demands the explicit bureaucratic permission of receiving nations. Opting out is a luxury of capital and geopolitical luck. Even if you manage to leave, you remain under sovereign rule. You merely transfer from one jurisdiction to another, trading one set of state managers for the next. Beneath the endless paperwork, the civic debates, and the voting mechanisms, the foundation of the state is physical coercion. If you object too strongly to the rules, the system remembers that it commands a police force. We navigate our lives surrounded by an enclosed economic and legal structure. Operating within that structure is a matter of necessity, not a continuous expression of free choice. Pointing out the structural flaws of democracy often invites the critique, well, what is your alternative? But diagnosing an unstable bridge doesn't require you to immediately draft the blueprints for a replacement. The honest defense of democracy is modest. The system provides state coercion with manners, opposition benches, and layers of bureaucratic paperwork. As these procedural layers rotate, we find mechanisms for public challenge, preventing naked autocracy from acting without friction. Democracy provides a functional scaffolding to manage human conflict, but we should recognize it for what it is, scaffolding, rather than pretending it magically abolishes domination. It's time to strip away the moral halo. We need to stop treating democracy as a sacred engine, purifying coercion and rendering us free. Stripped of its Enlightenment mythology, it remains a tolerable machine for managing deep disagreements among trapped humans who can't leave, and who never stop inventing stories about why their cage is actually a covenant.